Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Lady Leadership Show. My name's Sam McIntyre, your host, and today I'm here with the wonderful Ursula Lepporoli. Now, Ursula is a partner at KPMG. She's also a people and culture specialist. She specializes in tax across borders as well. She was the Global Mobility Champion of the Year for 2022, so we'll dig into that. She's a speaker, loves automation, process improvement. Welcome to the show, Ursula.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Now, I stalked you on LinkedIn, you know, the great place where everyone can meet and connect these days. And you put a post that caught my attention, which I really liked. And so we might just dig into that first, which was about women having the opportunity to work in other countries and the skills that you develop in those countries. Let's dig into that one a little bit. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, look, I think in my opinion, I've seen these rotational programs, particularly for large companies, but sometimes for smaller ones, where people are asked to go spend time in another country. When they return, it's really a grooming activity for the C-suite.
Yeah.
And so when women don't take those positions and go out and go on the expat assignments, they're kind of almost, eliminating themselves from those roles in a way, because they haven't gained that further experience abroad. They haven't learned what the business looks like in other countries. And like you said earlier when we were chatting, you really just are open to new experiences and developing yourself in different ways that you would never get by just sitting in one spot. So yes, I'm a big advocate for, even if it seems difficult, even if you've got kids, trying, if it's offered, to go on these experiences, and even if it's not offered, still put your hand up and seek out one if possible.
Yeah, I think that's really true, like the seeking out and putting your hand up. I also like the piece that you said there around barriers, because I think sometimes as women, we're like, oh, I don't want to take the kids out of school, or, oh, like you can come up with 100 reasons why you might not do it. But to your point, the benefits of actually doing that and exploring, and then that elevates you when you return back to the country that you're originally from. Well, that elevates your experience and allows you to stand out.
It does. I think a couple weeks ago, I was able to do an introduction at an event for Geraldine Slattery, the president of the biggest company in Australia, BHP. Now, would she have got to that situation and her role if she hadn't spent time working in at least 4 other countries? Maybe not.
Yeah, true. Very true. I've certainly not running BHP, but I have had that experience of working in other countries and putting my hand up. I'm not sure it was considered a C-suite rotation at the time. It was more, I was working in the UK, and a team I was working for, they wanted someone to go and transfer a program of work to India.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, let's get the Australian, they'll do it, because I enjoyed travel, etc. But I put my hand up, and I did put myself out there, and then I further on from that, I did put myself out there for other opportunities to gain that experience. And we were chatting quite before the show, saying that when I was in that role in India, then a lot of the senior executives would actually come out to India and spend time there, because they all wanted to get to know the business there. So you actually were able to then meet people, and then meeting those people gave me the opportunity I had the opportunity to work in the US. I didn't end up taking it up. I got pregnant at the time, returned to Australia, and then that US connection actually got me a connection into Woolworths here, because someone from Woolworths was traveling, met them, they recommended me, said I'd return to Australia. I ended up working for Woolworths. So it's the people you meet, it's the job skill, etc., that you gain. It's all connection, and having an experience of global organizations and how they work differently in other countries and those different cultures. It's like an MBA, really.
It is. It's a real life in real time experience that you really can't get another way. So I spent some time in India when we used to offshore an element of our work stream there. And I grew so much individually, and then also in the work that I was doing. But I think beyond that, it didn't just help me grow, it helped the other team. So I don't think that they had many expats come to India from KPMG who were Black females. And so I arrived and they were like, wow, well, what's this? Who's this? And what's going on?
Yeah.
And I remember it took a little bit of getting used to each other. And on the first day, one of them asked me, like, what's your mother tongue? And I was like, that is such a English. But it was also letting that other group experience someone from the outside. So I think everyone gains in that rich experience when we swap. It's just beneficial for everyone.
Yeah, love it. Now, tell me a little bit then about your personal journey and some of the moments that have led you to where you are today in your in business.
Going on with the theme of mobility, I think if I go back to when I was 15, my mom sent me to go live with my father in Sweet Home, Arkansas, which sounds about as country as it is. So I went from Denver, Colorado, got on a Greyhound bus by myself, and the next day, 24 hours later, found myself in Sweet Home, Arkansas. So I think that's kind of what.
So the town is named Sweet Home.
It is.
Yeah.
No joke.
I love America. We've
just
got
like the song
names here in Australia too that don't make sense to people outside of it.
But I remember I got there on the first day, I was like, I want to go back home. Like, this is terrible. But after a while, I just kind of settled into it and realized that I could do and become whatever I wanted to be, whether that was elements of who I was, 2 days before back in Denver, before I got on that Greyhound, or some new version of me. And then I think as I went to uni in a different state, and then when I was finished with my undergraduate degree and deciding to come to Australia, again, another big jump to another country on the other side of the world where I knew no one, to reinvent myself and learn how to thrive in a different country and culture. So then I think throughout my career, so it's not just me giving people advice saying, go do some mobility. It can help you grow your career. It's me actually having done it myself and experienced what it can do. Yeah. So I had a career break. I was 30 and I didn't want to have a baby and I just needed a break. So I traveled Central and South America for 7 months. And after I was done with that, I moved to Perth from Sydney.
Yeah.
So that allowed me to, again, create Perth version of Ursula, meet new people. And you were speaking earlier about networks. I think that's so important. If everywhere you're going, you're doing good work and people are respecting you, you're building that foundation for your future, even though you're just kind of doing your everyday work. So anyway, I was in Perth for a while, and then with the boom and bust of oil and gas, I returned back to Sydney in 2016. And then as I got promoted to a partner, moved down to Melbourne. So mobility is something I live and breathe all the time. And every move has brought new challenges, allowed me to grow, allowed me to also reflect on how I was presenting myself and who I was in that place, and purposefully deciding what I'm going to do differently in the next move.
Yeah, I really like that. There is that ability to reinvent yourself, be something new. And then I think, like you said, kind of focus on, well, what does that actually look like here? And then see how that matches the culture, the society, the acceptance in those locations. Because it can be hard to breaking into somewhere as well, or finding
100%
things to do on the weekend as well.
That's so true. You have to look after yourself professionally and personally. So I made a massive effort and made it a priority to also grow my friend network when I moved down to Melbourne, because I knew no one down here. And it became, okay, so yes, I need to do work and I need to win work and take care of my team, but I also need to look after myself. And so how am I going to make sure that I have girlfriends? That became also a priority.
How did you do that?
Well, both probably in the same place, which is LinkedIn. So I think, you often meet women who are like, oh, your kids will go to school, and then you'll find parents there. Yeah. And that's never really been a space where I've found people that I could relate to. So it's always been, I have similar interests as other professional women. Yeah. So there's an abundance of them on LinkedIn. So I was able to find them, and I'm not too shy. So, reaching out and saying, hey, would you like to grab a coffee? And I love Melbourne in that people have found time for me. So whether it was for work or for just hanging out and being friends, I found really amazing women.
Yeah, I like that because you're an interesting lady. You've spent time in different places, and so you can have great conversation about interesting topics through your perspective.
Oh, and everyone's got a story. Like I met a guy the other day who works on the same floor as me, and he was in cyber, and we'd kind of seen each other, but we're walking to the train station together. And he told me that he'd lost 200 pounds. So no, sorry, he lost 180 kilos in 2 years.
80 kilos.
180 kilos. And I was like, that is tremendous. And he just told me a story, and I was like, that's crazy. So I think everyone's got a story. You don't have to go somewhere and, live a different life to be interesting. It pays to just ask people questions.
Yeah, nice. I remember when I was in India by myself for like 4 or 5 months. I remember I was on the weekends, I was like, if I just have 1 or 2 things to do, that's okay. So I just need one sort of thing to do on a Saturday, one thing to do on a Sunday. And, there you can do loads of sightseeing and loads of, and then, the longer I've then, made some friends there as well. And, that's all I needed. And, because you're busy during the week, right? And you're busy at work, and, you can occupy yourself there. I'm also someone that doesn't want to spend all of my, if I'm spending all of my time with someone at work, I need to be away from them on the weekends as well. I need to find other people. Like,
I think the older that I get, the more that I actually enjoy spending time alone as well.
yes. Yeah.
So I really enjoy riding.
I can see the bike behind you.
Yeah, cycling, but also just writing as well. Like, I think getting comfortable in the silence with yourself is something that you also grow into, as I'm sure you can relate to.
I love
and
it.
then just, it's good to sometimes just be alone too.
Yeah, very good. Talk to me then about sort of some of the challenges that you faced in your industry as you've kind of gone through, and also, about being a partner at KPMG as well. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, look, if you've been inside of a CBD in Australia, you've seen the squad of blue suit men. They're everywhere. They're about, and a lot of them have a lot of, if you look at different organizations, there's a lot of men who are in control.
Yeah.
In our partnership, we have goals to get to 40% women. We're tracking towards that. We also have targets around cultural diversity as well. So it's not a better picture if you take, all of the men and then only have white women as well. It needs to be everyone involved in leadership. Your leadership should reflect your clients and the community that you operate in. And so I'm really excited that KPMG's embraced that and are doing things to actually improve the statistics that we have in leadership around diversity. But again, I don't wear a blue suit, and I'm never going to blend in. I'm always potentially going to be the only Black female in a room. I'm sometimes the only female in a room, but you can't let that keep you quiet or not allow yourself to shine. So instead of, trying to blend in, I just lean into it. You kind of make it your own superpower in a sense. So I don't have a blue suit. I have blue leather pants, and I wear them to panels sometimes.
I do like that. I remember going to, so I've worked in technology for 30 years. I remember going to quite a few dinners or quite a few functions, etc. And I, like yourself, like I had a yellow shirt on, and and I've got red curly hair, and I like to wear red lipstick. Or I've realized I've been places and I've been the only female apart from the waiting staff. And I do like your piece around, it is what it is. We're working to change it. You're helping to change it, and lean into who you are and be visible and speak up for yourself, because we're not going to change it otherwise, are we?
No. And I think we have to just keep asking uncomfortable questions, and when you, as a partner now, I actually, there's less fear that I can ask questions to even the CEO or to anyone about what's going on and what we're doing and how we can be more bold about our approach. So finding your voice. I think being able to be comfortable and having the confidence to use your voice is a journey. And then when you find that, it's freeing, and it allows you to feel authentic in who you are. I think we talk a lot about authenticity, but when you feel comfortable and confident to use your own voice in the way that you want to is when you really got there.
And you want to be respectful with that as well. No one wants to. We've all been that angry woman. None of us want to be that angry woman. We're all been like, oh my God, I can't believe you just said that, or you've just cut me off again, or I said that 10 minutes ago. We've all been that person. But I've also realized you can only make change within the constraints of an organization as well. And so the organization and the people that run it, and you're part of running that organization as a partner, are the people that can make that change, and being respectful. And like you said, I think asking questions.
Or just calling out stuff like, I'm the only woman here. Wouldn't it be great if there were more women here?
Anyone notice I'm the only woman here?
We did a tech transformation project, and every steering committee meeting that we had, I was the only woman. So sometimes I just be like, oh, I'm the only woman here today. Wouldn't it be great if there were other women? And it just encouraged us to think about how we could fix that pipeline to get more women coming through.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the work that I do these days with technology organizations around how do you change that. What are some difficult decisions that you've had to make then in your career and also in business?
To keep on theme, I'll keep with the mobility. So I remember I was a manager, I believe, and we have these things, I call them tax treks. And for 3 months, you go over to a foreign country and, a bit of a mini assignment, a bit of a reward for doing a good job. You have to perform well to be asked to go on one. And they're highly sought after because there's only 2 or 3 a year. Yeah. And I'd applied the prior year because the places were like Mexico and like Mozambique and maybe Russia or something. Like it was some pretty far-flung destinations. And I was like, that's really cool. And obviously coming from the US, Canada's less cool. Like I went there when I was 18 to go drink because you could drink over there. So, so I was offered a mobility experience in Toronto, in Canada. And I went to school, uni in Flint, Michigan. And Toronto is like very close. It's not that far away. And I actually said, you know what? No, I don't actually kind of need that mobility in my life because I'm not going to gain anything from that. That's not going to stretch me. That doesn't excite me. And I think that goes, I had a post that I did recently the other day about, if it's not a hell yes, then it's no.
Yeah. Right. Wow. No regrets then?
Absolutely none. No.
It's very brave to do that as well.
It'd be like if someone told you want to go on an assignment to Tassie.
Yeah, like if I was living in the UK and they're like, you're going to go on an extended program to Melbourne, I'd be like, lived there my whole life and not, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think saying yes to the right opportunities is important, and you have to be ready to say no when it's not right.
And I think that's to do if you get clear on what your vision is. You get clear on your vision, your mission, your purpose, priorities, and you're clear on where you're wanting to go. When things come in, you can go, okay, well, that slots in there, and I say yes, or that's a no. Yeah,
100%. Well, I don't know that I was that clear-minded when I said no at that young stage in my career, but I was very clear on what I didn't want to do, which I think is equally as important. Understanding what you just don't want to do and where's your no.
I worked for an international company, and the person that I reported into had said, I see you as a replacement for me, etc. Now they were working in Hong Kong, or I think they might have even been in China as well. And just at that time in my life, and so I'd spent nearly 8 years in the UK. I'd spent time in India. When I worked in the UK, I had an international job, so I did a lot of travel. It's a kind of Aussie backpacker's dream, really. And and then I'd come back to Melbourne and then gone quickly to Sydney, spent 5 years in Sydney, and then come back again, and was now raising my children here in Melbourne, we have a pretty fabulous lifestyle here. It's an easy city to live in. And I was just like, do you know what? Just it's not the right time. I'd gotten back into horse riding. I had a horse. You can't put a horse in Singapore. Like, it's pretty difficult, pretty expensive.
Although I have heard of an expat, a very senior executive, moving a horse, which is absolutely ridiculous. But yeah.
You can do it. You can do it. But it was just, I was like, because I'd actually had the desire prior to that to go and live in another country again, and to go, but I also understood of starting over again. And at that time, we'd started over a lot. And so I knew what that meant. And I was like, oh, I don't know that I have the energy right now to restart. Because we had to restart when we come back to Melbourne. We had to, you know, we were just restarting. And then
it's tiring and expensive. So even moving from Sydney to Melbourne was expensive.
Yeah, I moved from Melbourne to Sydney and was in a role there, and then decided after like 5 years, it wasn't, you know, 5 minutes, was like, actually, I want to return back to Melbourne. I'd had a couple of children by that point. The family was here, and they paid me for me to go there, but they weren't paying for me to come back.
Oh dear.
They're like, no. So that's an important piece for people to note when you're doing a contract negotiation. Just put in potential return as well. So
Oh, that, and I think repatriation is it's a tricky topic for Australians who go away. So if you're an Australian and you go abroad and you collect all this wonderful experience, and it might not be a 2-year thing, you've just kind of gone and lived abroad, coming back, I think having people recognize those skills that you've achieved abroad is sometimes challenging, because they want you to have those local networks here in Australia and understand the local way of doing business, which is ridiculous sometimes because you're Australian, of course you know that. But I think maintaining those networks when you go offshore is critical. You can't just disappear from the Australian landscape. People have to understand that you're still a thing, which I think goes into just brand. Your brand is so powerful, and you must have a network, and you must have a brand.
I mean, that's a super important point. I found that I spent 8 years in the UK, and my life had changed a lot. It was kind of 27 to 35, right? And re-establishing those networks was difficult, but then explaining that experience, and I did find it highly amusing at the time, because I worked in retail, and there was a bit of a thing to bring in expats from the UK, and yet I was struggling as a person from Australia who'd gone there and then come back again. I was struggling with that, to kind of, might have been the woman thing as well, right? You don't know.
A little bit.
Yeah, exactly. But I was kind of like, Tesco, they're like one of the biggest retailers in the world, like, you know, and explaining who they were to a recruitment person. Yeah.
It's so hard. I don't know. It's maybe because we're so far away from everything else, or I don't know, we're a bit protectionist, but yeah, Australians repatriating with that rich experience still find it difficult to find a role that equates what their skill set is at.
Yeah. And we, you know, our favorite question is, what school did you go to?
Oh, well, no one ever asks me that. That's the beauty and joy of my accent, is no one's asking me that.
Yeah, no, I haven't been at school for quite some time now. So, you know, but it's our way, because you can't tell necessarily by accent, or it's our way of trying to classify people into a demographic.
I'm in buckets, yeah.
Yeah. It's a bit like in the UK, when someone speaks, you can generally tell what area of the UK they're from, because the accent's so broad there, whereas we're not as, you might be able to tell if someone's from Queensland.
Or Adelaide.
Or where?
Or Adelaide, yeah.
Oh yeah. Apparently their accent's a little bit more posh. I don't know. Maybe not. We talked a little bit earlier about building a strong network. LinkedIn, other plans. We talked a little bit earlier about building a strong network and professional relationships as women.
Yes, yeah, no, that's so important. I talked about, well, actually, I was recently named a LinkedIn top voice because I use LinkedIn so much.
Yeah.
But I think it starts there, and it can never end there. I think in order for it to really turn into something, well, what do you want to get out of your network? For me, I want to get collaboration out of it. I want to learn their stories, build them into my stories, you know, just grow the collective. And you're not probably going to have that deep of a conversation on a platform. So you need to take it off the platform and into real life, where you can have that conversation and figure out how you can work together. Or you just decide, well, we're never going to work together, but we're just going to be friends. And that's good too.
Yep. And do you see then, I see a lot of women very busy working in their career rather than working on their career, and networking being one of those things. So I think I've probably said no to about 100 networking events in my, because I was too busy, right? Which I now go, why was I doing that? Like, I think we really, yeah, talk to me a little bit about your experience of that.
Well, look, you can go the other way. I found myself sometimes at things where I'm like, why am I here? I've said yes to this, and this is not where I'm supposed to be. So I think you just have to then get to the point where you're okay to leave. You
Yeah.
have to find the value in your time. And
Mm.
if whatever you're doing is not what they promised or sold, I sat one time in a conversation that was just like a 30-minute commercial, and I was like, this is ridiculous. And I got up and left.
Yeah.
So I think when you decide that you're going to start saying yes, then you have to decide, okay, when am I going to leave if this is not for me? Because everything is not for you.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
That's okay. Yeah. And then I think just creating your own networks, or creating your own events, or creating your own get-togethers. There's a group of women that I catch up with, and we share experiences, and we talk about
Yeah.
stuff. And we talk about jobs, and we talk about different problems that we've got, or we talk about businesses, and kind of like a, little sounding board type piece.
When I arrived down here, there are different communities and mobility professionals getting together, but as a service provider, you're not always invited to those, which is fair enough. They don't want people selling to them. So I created my own community. It's called the Melbourne Mobility Meetup. And anyone that, we invite our clients, targets, and friends to come to that. So like you said, if there's not a network or a community that ticks all your boxes, go create your own and invite your own friends.
Yeah. Perfect. Thoughts on the future of women in business, and what steps do you believe are necessary to create more opportunities and equality?
Yeah, look, I think it's about that women in leadership roles, and then thinking about how you actually get in those roles, and if that's going through expat assignments so that you can actually understand the business more. If there's a rotation program, get involved with that. I think for me, one of the big decisions in my life and career was when I was going to have a baby. So then this is something that men would never even think about. I was like, okay, do I need to get to manager first? What role do I going to do it at? I was like, what time of the year should it be in? Is it going to be in busy season? I remember when I went to my boss to tell him that I was pregnant, I was like, okay, I'm not just going to go in there and be like, I'm pregnant. I had thought out a plan. So I had picked out a secondee to come to the office and take my role while I was going to be on parental leave, so that he wouldn't be worried. And yes. I think women go through all of these things in our head to figure out when we should even have a baby. Yeah. It's so hard. So I'd love to see in the future where there's non-gender specific use, and it's use it or lose it parental leave that's shared equally between both parents. So that women aren't so afraid of what happens when you end up getting pregnant and what it's going to do to your career.
That's right. And, it's very interesting that you went through all that thought process, and really great for who you were reporting into, that you were so considered about what you
they were loving it.
Yeah. And then, because often it can be you leave a job and then you don't necessarily get the same job back, particularly in Australia.
Yeah, look, so I've been with KPMG now almost 18 years. So leaving was not an option, and I've never left. So I can't really, but when I do speak to other women, I was speaking to a woman who works at a PR firm. And I'm just really spoiled because I've always worked for this big organization that's always had a well thought out parental leave policy. And she had none. So she's frozen her eggs and she's thinking about what she's going to do. And that also includes how I'm going to tell my boss that I actually need to have time off because I'm actually having this baby, so that they can actually let me have the time off beyond kind of what you're required to give as an employer, and how she's going to then, because they weren't actually paying out anything other than the government leave, which if you're a professional senior woman is nowhere near your salary.
No.
So she's trying to save so that she can have a baby as well. So I'd love to see more universal approaches across even small businesses about what happened with parental leave.
Sweden do a good job. They have a 50-50. My brother, fun fact, lives in Sweden, and they get parental leave up until the child's 8 years old.
Wow.
And highly government funded. Yeah.
That's great. But then on the other spectrum, I'd actually like us to start having uncomfortable conversations about menopause and the support that women need in that stage of their life. So you hear so many stories about women quitting because it's just too much. The effects of menopause, the hot flashes and whatnot, make it so that they can't actually function at work, and then they quit. But what if we were able to keep all those women inside of the workforce because we were providing them with leave or whatever support it is that they needed so that they stayed? I think that that is something we need to explore further, because that's probably a reason why you see less, gray-haired women in the workforce at the leadership levels, because of menopause.
Because they've opted out. And sometimes they don't know why they've opted out either. They don't actually know that it is menopause that's impacting them in that way. And so I'm right there in this space currently. And I over Christmas time I couldn't sleep, and because I was having hot flushes, and I decided to give up alcohol for January, and then it went away, and so my symptoms went away for a good 8 months, and now they've come back.
Great.
That is great. And now I'm like, okay, I feel like it could be sugar or it's something like that, but it is quite. So I think sleep's really important, and if you can't sleep, then that just impacts for me, it just impacts my whole day, really.
Oh, 100%. One of my goals on my to-do list is to write a book, and looking after yourself is something that I'm really keen about. And I have this, I'll do quick. I have this wellness challenge I've made for myself. So every day across 10 different. Yeah. And I've got them going. Well, I started it during COVID because I needed a system to look after myself better, and I'm really competitive. So I created this personal well-being challenge for myself, and I score myself across 10 different categories, and then I'm able to track. So like you said, sleep for me is fundamental as well. So if I start to feel, aggro and kind of edgy, if I look back at the data, I can see, well, okay, I didn't get my 10 points for rest for the last 3 days. Make sure you go to bed on time, or I'm not getting enough water, or whatever it is. I can then, that's kind of like hacking yourself to be like, yeah, I need to do these things to feel better. And so I'm hoping that helps me when I get to menopause to understand what's going on. Like this deep listening to my body helps me when I get there.
Yeah, I think so. Because I was quite astounded when I did give up alcohol and that all the symptoms went away. And too much information for the podcast, but I'll overshare slightly, is that I then got my period a couple of months. Right. Yeah, exactly. I was like, okay, well, that's incredible, the impact that alcohol has on you. And I was someone that would have a couple of glasses of wine maybe 2 nights a week. Because I'd discovered, 100 years ago or 20 years ago that if I drank during the week, I really couldn't do my job. It just made me tired. I didn't sleep well. And so I was then kind of quite amazed. And then now I'm like, well, there's something else. It's it's sugar, or it's maybe too many carbohydrates, or there's something else in my system, or there's something I'm not getting enough of from a vitamin perspective.
As we get older, our insulin response isn't as good as it was before. So it could be the carbs. Yeah. And I wish you luck.
So then I've tried, I'm trying fasting, etc. But tell me, so are you thinking of writing a book then around the?
I'd love to. The more that I talk about it, the more people there are to hold me accountable to doing it.
So you need to add to the list. So I hired a writing coach a little while ago because I wanted to write a book, and I'd just like to tell the audience I haven't moved very far on that, because they would have heard that quite a few episodes ago. But she says write for 4 minutes every day. Start writing for 4 minutes every day.
Okay, I can do that. I have my title, and in my mind I see this beautiful completed work of art.
Yeah.
And you just have to start.
Yeah. Yep. Put it as an extra thing on the wellness checklist. Tell me, I want to know what's on the 10 now. I do really. So sleep, water.
So exercise.
Yeah.
And it's not so I get 5 points if I close my ring on my Apple Watch. Okay. And then if I get an extra 5 points if I exercise for an hour and 30 minutes. So that's max points. Nutrition. So for me, for many years, I focused on exercise as like that's the pinnacle of well-being,
Yeah.
but it's so also so much about what you're actually putting into your body. So for nutrition, for me, I track what I eat. And if I stay within my macros range, then I give myself 10 points. Water. So if I drink 2 liters, I get 10 points. My vitamins. So I take like, vitamin D and magnesium and stuff like that. So if I take them, I get 10 points. If I have 7 hours of restful sleep, so not just sleep, but 7 hours of restful sleep, then I give
Like
myself
you go
10.
to sleep and you don't wake up?
My watch tells me when I'm in, I have an app that tells me when I'm restful or kind of restless.
Yep.
I weigh myself, and I don't suggest this is my challenge. I'm not suggesting everyone do this, but I weigh myself every day so I can track trends. So when I step on a scale, I give myself 10 points. Stress management.
Step on, you give yourself 10 points. So
Yeah, just for stepping on, just getting on.
Oh, right. Wow. Because I know I don't weigh myself if I'm going off track. If I'm going off track, I don't get on. If I think I've lost some weight, I'm like, oh.
See, and you got to avoid that because you just have to know all the data.
Also, if I eat badly, I don't track it as well.
But if I get 10 points, then I make sure it's the easiest 10 points on the whole thing. Just go step on the scale.
Yeah.
And it keeps you honest to then make sure that you don't do those bad decisions of what you're going to eat or whatever, because you're like, I gotta get on the scale, and who knows what's going to say if I eat this pie.
A lot of people will tell us muscle weight, weight water, all of that kind of stuff, but this is what you do. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, and it fluctuates. If you're, about to have your period, it's different. It's different, but you can see the trends.
Yeah.
Let's see, we got stress management. So every day I have a gratitude journal that I write in, or I meditate. Yep. Then I've got my steps. So 10 points is 10,000 steps. And then it's meal prep and planning. So for me, I'm a big planning ahead person. And with all the best wishes in the world, if I'm like, eat healthy, and then I'm like,
there's nothing in the fridge.
Yeah, exactly. Or what's hard for me is I'll be in the city, I'll be at work, I'll come home and I'm ravenous, and then I'm just like shoving everything into my mouth. And even if you eat, all the healthy things, but you overeat the healthy things, then you're still not doing well. So yeah, I give myself 5 points for meal prep and 5 points for planning. And then I have the last one is really connecting with a loved one or mate. So I'll count this as 10 points today.
Oh, that's not very true. I'll give myself 10 points as well. That's so beautiful. I love that. And then when you add up the points, right, how do you then?
So that's a good question. What is success?
Yeah.
So 70 points is what I've targeted myself as. That's a good day.
Yeah.
You cannot get 100 points every day.
No.
Or you're exhausted and you're stressed out and it's too much. You can have a 100-point day once or twice a week, but if you're somewhere between around 70, that's a good day. If you keep that consistently, then you're all right.
It's consistency, right? And so, like yourself, I've played around with consistency around exercise, consistency around health, food, etc. And I just haven't been able to hold myself fully to account. I get on the bus and then I get off the bus. I get on the bus, I get off the bus. There's one thing that I've been able to be consistent with, and that's my horse and horse riding. And so I'll ride 4 days, and then she has a couple of days off, and I need a couple of days off too. And then I ride 4 days again, and then and it's a big hobby, right? It's like a couple of hours worth of.
But it's good exercise.
Great exercise. Yeah, but I'm not then getting. I'd like to lose probably a good 10 kilos. I'm one of those people that lost weight over COVID and then had put it back on. And I wasn't one of the other type because I did a lot of horse riding over COVID, right?
Well, I think it's all about your systems. So like this system works really well for me. And I've tried to make it an app, but then I was looking at my phone too much and getting distracted. So I have it. It just sits on my computer right here on my laptop. And I look at it constantly, and it's a constant reminder of what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm really competitive. And I'm competing against myself and how many points I can get and how better I can be. And I've always got it there to help me. So I think it's finding whatever works for you so that you stick to it. And sometimes I fall off the wagon too, but then I come back.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? I haven't found, and I do like this, what you're recommending. And it's just, it becomes habit, right?
So I'm doing a 56-day challenge at the moment because I did have a rest in June. I kind of just didn't exercise. I just did whatever, and I needed to rest.
Yeah.
And then I needed to kick back into gear. So I'm on day 26 of a 56-day challenge to create that habit of tracking meticulously and getting up at 5 and doing my workouts. And again, for me, that's like, I tell people, I'm on this 56-day challenge, and it keeps me motivated.
Yeah.
They check in on me. I tell them my results. I think celebrating your results is so important.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's if you ask my team, they're probably tired of my challenge, but it's going well.
No, I mean, doing exercise and then doing 10,000 steps as well. That's pretty.
It's full on,
Yeah.
but you're tired at 9 o'clock p.m. and then I wake up at 5 and I just do it again.
Yeah. You sleep well, because what I've noticed with older age is you're just not as active. I'm not as active as what I was 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, actually.
But you could be.
I could be. That's right. Exactly. Well, thank you.
We've gone way off topic now.
It's important stuff. It's important stuff. Best way for the audience to get in touch with you?
Follow me on LinkedIn. I connect with pretty much anyone who reaches out. And if you're in Melbourne and you want to have a coffee, I always have a coffee with someone who wants to have a chat. So yeah, LinkedIn.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ursula, for being on the show. Absolutely loved all those tips and hints and things that you do, and all the craziness we put ourselves through. It's real.
It is, but it's fun. If you're not having a good time, then something's wrong. You got to mix it up if it's not fun.
Yeah, I love your bright, vivacious personality as well, KPMG.
Thank you, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheers.